To break this all down, we are joined by Washington Post political reporter Amber Phillips. Amber, always good to see you. Let me get your take on this meeting, this boning up on foreign policy by what many people consider to be the preeminent foreign policy specialist in the United States today, Henry Kissinger.
Yeah, I think his meeting with Kissinger and I think releasing these Supreme Court nominees on the same day is not a mistake, right? Here we have Donald Trump trying to assuage conservatives that he's a serious candidate who can make serious decisions about serious issues. I imagine that's how Trump would say it, almost exactly. So it's not a mistake that he's just trying to, as you said, like bone up and sort of beef up his foreign policy, his judicial credentials, show that he's more than just a popular talking head on a big stage and on cable news.
One of the risks that Donald Trump faces right now, Amber, is the potential of isolating some of those voters initially who really liked him because he was kind of anti-establishment Washington. So how does meeting with Henry Kissinger weigh into that, or does it even affect it at all?
You know, I'm not sure. There are so many things I've wondered might turn off some of the more, working class white voters to Donald Trump, going all the way back to last summer when he said John McCain probably wasn't a war hero. None of it's happened. At this point, I think the right question is like, what can alienate voters to Donald Trump? You see him make these policy promises and then say, but this is all amenable to when I'm in the White House. That's not something that normally politicians can get away with. And we've hashed this over throughout this campaign. But I still wonder, just how much stock voters are putting into a meeting with Henry Kissinger, who's really out of the political conversation largely right now, for this guy that they just truly love, and nothing else has been able to knock him off their pedestal.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to meet with Henry Kissinger, who in the past has commented on Donald Trump's plan to not allow Muslim immigrants into the United States. He didn't think that was a solid plan. But I'm more interested. It's interesting, Amber, he's meeting with guys like Kissinger, and clearly the attempt there is to bone up on his foreign policy. But when you have people in the national security apparatus of this country, people who are in it now, not people who were in it back in the 70s and early 70s and late 70s, but who are in it now, like Robert Gates, saying that they are uncomfortable with some of the positions that Donald Trump has taken. They are uncomfortable, and they feel that he could threaten some of the relationships with our allies and with other countries like North Korea, for example. What do you make of that?
Yeah, I think Donald Trump, you're absolutely right, is kind of backed into a corner a little bit about who wants to meet with him now that he's the de facto nominee. I mean, this is just surreal to have, as you said, people like Bob Gates, United States senators, the Speaker of the House, express such resignation and hesitation about their de facto nominee. So I think Donald Trump is kind of struggling with who's actually going to meet with him. You people like Newt Gingrich, of course, the former Speaker of the House, that does not mind at all trying to influence Donald Trump. It's kind of, do you join him or do you fight him? But I think Donald Trump has also shown he's not afraid to sort of try to win over people who criticize him. Henry Kissinger is one example. Don Willett, of the Texas State Supreme Court judge that made his short list, is another example. It could almost be, I could see Donald Trump spinning this in the eyes of his supporters as him not afraid to take on and woo over his critics. I do hear he's a very charming guy in person.
Amber, it's like you've got the Donald Trump playbook there that you're reading lines from. It's right on. I want to ask you about the Supreme Court names, 11 names that Donald Trump put out today. The White House has made a huge case against Donald Trump, saying you need to move on Merrick Garland, who they're trying to push through to the Supreme Court to get a hearing on. You don't know who could be the next one in the White House. Obviously, they're rooting for the Democratic nominee, but Donald Trump is out there with these names. Is this to counter also what you're hearing from the White House and the criticism he could not pick? You're seeing Donald Trump right there leaving the meeting with former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, foreign policy meeting, his son right there in the backseat as well. But going back to the Supreme Court talk, Amber, do you think this is to counter all the White House talk on Merrick Garland and to show that he is capable of putting forward a good nominee?
Yeah, absolutely. I think he's not only trying to counter all the White House talk, but counter all the talk on the right, all the concerns on the right that he's not truly conservative. I think you have people on the left thinking he's going to nominate this conservative wacko. He joked about nominating his sister, who I didn't mean as a conservative wacko, but just someone who's like, a Donald Trump friend or something like that. Then you have people on the right concerned that he's going to nominate someone who's just going to vote liberal down the line once they get on the bench. Donald Trump is trying to play offense with both those critiques with this list. Most of the guys, and they are mostly white men on this list, have been supported by the Heritage Foundation, which is of course a conservative think tank group. We saw the preeminent judicial think tank group that's trying to oppose Merrick Garland's nomination come out and support most of these people on the list. So I think Donald Trump did what he needed to do by nominating 11 minus that Texas judge, relatively kind of boring guys with traditional resumes in the judicial world, especially supported by conservative people, to try to assuage both those concerns on the right and the left.
All right, Amber Phillips of the Washington Post. Amber, thank you. Good to see you as always.
Thank you.